Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for a very special hour to recognize British home children and their descendants today, the day before British Home Children Day. Welcome to the Family History Expert Hour, Find My Past. Welcome, everybody. Today is a very special Family History Expert Hour, and we're going to do things just a little bit differently because we have a very special guest that we have had on before, but we have brought back again. Lori Oschefski from Home Children Canada is just an amazing and incredible wealth of knowledge around the topic of British home children or home children, depending on how you refer to them. And I am so pleased to have her back with us on today's session. And we are so grateful for the partnership with Home Children Canada. So I'm going to bring Lori into our session for today, and we're going to talk about all things home children. Hi, Lori. How are you?
Hello. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. And thank you for having me here again.
Yeah, we're always happy to have you. This is a topic that we've covered a couple of times, Lori, but I think it's one that is worth repeating over and over and over again. This is just something that it simply needs to be talked about a whole lot more. And we're really grateful for you being willing to talk about it with us.
Thank you.
So we will say hello to a few of our regular followers. Thanks, everybody, for joining in and putting yourself in the comments. I also want to mention we have Liam today in the comments, so say hello to Liam as well. We've got Andrea and Rosie and William. Kim is with us, Gina, Heather, and Lynn. All sorts of individuals coming in from the UK as well as Canada, it looks like already, starting to see that. And that's exciting because we want this story. We want these conversations to be very international. They need to be because of the history of these children and this migration movement. So we're going to do a few things today. We're going to talk about Home Children Canada and home children in general, of course. But we are also going to do kind of a few of our standard things. But let's start with just a quick overview. I know some of you have seen this before, but we're going to make sure that everybody is aware. We want to talk just a little bit about the history of this migration scheme and what it all looks like and what it all means. I'm going to click my slides. So some basic information, but Lori, do you want to just give us just kind of what's the overview, a few sentences on home children? Who were they? What were they? What was the program?
Well, the British home children were over 100,000 children that were forcibly immigrated from all areas of the UK to Canada. The programs ran from 1869 to 1939, officially came to an end. But the Fairbridge farms brought more children into 1948 into Canada. As I said, there was over 100,000 children. I think, by the time we collect most of our records, we're probably going to end up in around 115,000, if not more. We're coming across missing shipping records all the time. We just came across another two courier children, shipments of children that are missing from our records and from the registry. So it's interesting because it didn't just stop in Canada. What they did is when they did stop in Canada, they continued to immigrate children into the other colonies, especially Australia, until into the 1970s. So it would, like I said, they continued to do this. It was riddled with problems, and in spite of that, they continued to do this after they called a halt to Canada.
I think one of the things that hits me the most sometimes, probably all the time really, is just the number of children that weren't actually orphans, right? The program was originally designed to kind of pull children out of really bad conditions, in theory, orphans,
Yes.
And give them a better life. But in reality, only 12% are actually considered to be true orphans by today's standards. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, they called them orphans, and when you go back into the historical context of the home children programs, they did call any child that was either away from the family or had a death of a parent or something like that as an orphan. But a true orphan is a child that has the death of both parents, and only 12% of the home children that came to Canada, despite the fact that they were called orphans, were in fact true orphans. And as you said, in the beginning, Maria Rye started these programs. It was started as a mission of rescue of children from the impoverished conditions, but there was it was rifled with controversy. It was rifled with problems, and eventually they just started to immigrate children that had come from intact families that had fallen upon hard times, and therein lies the true problem with these programs.
Right. So, for those of you who maybe are unfamiliar with the initiative that we've started at Findmypast, largely in partnership with Home Children Canada, which is the group that Lori manages as a nonprofit. Last year, we started a program to try and bring together records of these children in kind of one central location, and we've done that in collaboration with organizations in Canada as well as in the UK, and we continue to pursue new records. So the idea is to give descendants today kind of the resources and tools they need to learn about these stories. It's sometimes very unpleasant, sometimes very difficult, most of the time very difficult to read these records. Even for me, I'm not biologically related to any of these people, but it's very hard to research these individuals and their families. So we're really pleased and incredibly proud to be bringing these stories kind of out and helping the mission of groups like Home Children Canada, who have been doing this for years and years and trying to just kind of elevate the voice and make people around the world really more aware of these programs, these children, and what happened to these families. So one of the reasons why we are doing today's session, of course, is because of that partnership. But we also want to recognize that tomorrow is Home Children Day. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But we just want to really acknowledge the partnership with Home Children Canada in particular. They have been incredibly supportive, their entire team, and all of their volunteers. It's just an amazing, incredible group, and they're incredibly passionate about what they're doing. So our huge thanks on behalf of the entire Findmypast team to Home Children Canada. Thank you, Lori, so much for your leadership in this mission. I know you've quite literally given your life to this.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm dedicated for the rest of my life to be involved with the story of the home children. But we are equally as grateful to have you to have you and Findmypast as a partnership in this mission, because there are pockets and pockets of information all over the place that Home Children Canada does not have the ability to transcribe and to film these documents and to get the children's names out. So this partnership is going to bring a lot of new information to the home children, to the descendants, and it's really elevating the story of the home children across the world. So thank you very much for your interest in our home children. It's amazing. Thank you.
It's our pleasure, certainly. And that is a perfect segue actually into what we're going to really talk about today. So we are going to take a second to recognize Home Children Day and tell all of you a little bit about what that looks like. Kind of in a couple of countries, actually. We have a brand new book we want to talk about. And then we also did release some new records this week related to the Home Children Initiative. So we'll go through new records like we typically do. And then Lori and I have come together and shared some research to tell one of these stories, a young woman by the name of Ethel, and really giving the chance to actually understand her story in full for the very first time. So that's what we're going to really spend most of our day with today, our session with. So Home Children Day and the Beacons of Light. Lori, can you tell us a little bit about why this day is important and what Beacons of Light is? Because it's all you guys.
Yes, it is. So British Home Child Day started in 2011 under the initiative of Jim Brunel, who had it passed through Parliament in Canada that in Ontario, that there would be a special day of recognition for the home children. And he picked September 28th because that is the date that his grandmother arrived in Canada. In 2018, his sister, Judy Neville, the late Judy Neville, then picked up on it, and she lobbied Parliament to make it a National British Home Child Day. So it's now our National British Home Child Day across Canada. In 2019, Home Children Canada stepped in with our initiative, which is called the Beacons of Light Celebration, and it is an international celebration of home children. So each year we have hundreds, literally hundreds of communities that are illuminating and celebrating across Canada. We're into the UK. We're also into Australia, which is super exciting. That started with one person showing the initiative in Australia, and now we have quite a few that are going to be marking Home Child Day in Australia. It's an important day. It symbolizes hope and remembrance for these children, many of whom faced hardship and adversity, and it serves as a poignant reminder of their legacy and contributions to Canadian society. So it's a very special day, and it's community driven. It's a community-driven initiative by Home Children Canada, and we see more and more people. They don't even have to be our group members, but more and more people are reaching out in their communities and bringing the story out and engaging with their communities to celebrate British Home Child Day. So good on all of you. Excellent. And this year has been incredible. Another incredible year. At least it will be tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the participation of everybody.
Right. If people want to find out what's happening near them, where can they access this list?
You know, the list is going to be available on our websites. It's also available on our Facebook group. And we're also going to be sending out our newsletter this afternoon, and the full listing will be there. But you're probably best to go to our Facebook group. And if you're on Facebook, just search for Home Children Canada Research Group, and it'll also be on our page, and it's up on Twitter as well.
Great, perfect. So with that, I think our next topic actually is a pretty significant announcement from Lori yourself, actually. And I'm sure I'm not the first, but I'll be one of the many to say congratulations on yet another book. Lori, this is your third on the topic, and today's a very exciting day.
Today is a very, very exciting day. It marks the release of my new book, Orphans of the Living, Canada's British Home Children. It's a groundbreaking new book that explores the controversial child migration schemes. It is based on meticulous research. And a lot of things come from the Library and Archives Canada Central Registry files. And the registry files are over 100,000 documents that pertain to the correspondence that went on from the sending organizations and the Canadian government. There's a real big myth that still needs to be dispelled, that the Canadian government had nothing to do with the child migration programs. And that categorically is untrue. So there is a focus on this book of the involvement of the Canadian government in the controversial child migration programs. So I'm really excited. It's been a labor of love. It's been years and years of research, and it's one of the most current, or it is the most current book that is nonfiction, that covers the child immigration programs from start to finish. There's a lot of new information that's going to be available in this book. So I'm really excited to have that out on release today. And I have a special for the first 10 readers who purchase Orphan of the Living and leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads. We're going to send you a copy of the best-selling book by Genevieve Graham, The Forgotten Home Child. So the first 10 people by the end of October who leave a review on Orphans of the Living will be sent a copy of Genevieve's book at no cost.
All right, challenge accepted, because I ordered my copy of your book this morning. So like, that's it, guys. You heard it here first. This is the first public announcement of this new title. So another big thank you to Lori for kind of saving that for this morning's session. Actually, like, that's really cool. Liam and I decided earlier this is our first book announcement on Findmypast Live. So
Oh,
we're pretty
nice.
excited about that. So yay, we're making history.
Yeah.
And of course, we have other things to announce today as well, and that is our new records for the week. So I'm going to give Lori a chance to take a deep breath because she's been doing most of the talking so
Yeah,
far.
I just wanted to mention
Oh, go
something
ahead.
else about the book, if I may. You've
Yeah,
got the
please.
little arrows going up. That is Dr. Bernardo's wife.
Oh.
That's who that lady is. Well, I guess maybe it's pointing to my name, but we'll point it to her. That's Dr. Bernardo's wife, and this is the 1907 party of children that were sent out. Now, it is cropped, but if you saw the original picture, which is the header picture on our websites, it's a whole string of kids, and sometimes these kids came in parties of like 400. And at the end of this line is all the boys that were coming over at this time. Now, this is the immigration party that brought my great aunt Katie Sanderson to Canada. So she is one of those girls that are in the picture. I don't know which one she is, but I do say that she is the prettiest one there.
Of course she is.
Yeah, of course she is.
Well, that's fantastic, and what a great way to use that photograph as well. I had noticed it was the same as the website, so I'm glad I was right about that. But I didn't know that was Dr. Bernardo's wife, so that's good. Good context for people. All right, so some more context for everybody. 3 new record sets went on Findmypast today to kind of acknowledge and recognize this initiative and Home Children Day itself. So 3 titles to tell you guys about today. The first is it's called News Cuttings from Dr. Bernardo, and this is a scrapbook. It's been digitized before, it's available elsewhere, but we decided to go ahead and publish it as part of our collection. It is browse only. There's not really any names or anything. It is literally like a scrapbook of newspaper articles. So we'll show you a couple of examples here in a second. But I do like it from a research perspective, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. The second set is The Register of Boys Arrived in Toronto House of Industry 1858 to 1864. Now, this is pretty early, and both Lori and I are not totally convinced these are actual home children as part of that migration scheme because of the date range. But it is kind of that same storyline of a boys brought into Canada as orphans as part of one of these Christian charities. So we decided to go ahead and include it in the set. It's a unique set because of the date range, and then it also has a little bit of uniqueness towards the end of the register as well. And then the third set we're going to talk about is the Colonial Office Immigration to Canada Enclosures to Reports, which is actually from the National Archives at Kew in the UK. So this is our first set that we've digitized from the National Archives that we've made available. We have more coming from them, but this is the first one. And these are registers of children being sent specifically to Canada.
I just wanted to make a comment about the registers of boys who arrived in Toronto House of Industry. We very often have people that are coming into our group that are asking about children who arrived pre, the home children era. So this is going to be a valuable resource that we can,
Right.
refer them to this so that they can look and see if they can find some information on their family member. So it may not be directly home children, but it's still valuable to the work that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just all related, right? Like
Yeah, all
children being
related.
shipped all over the empire.
Yeah,
That's kind of the general theme here. So,
yeah.
so let's go through these. A couple examples. So the news cuttings. It is, like I said, it is a scrapbook. It's been digitized. You can now browse it on Findmypast, and it covers just Dr. Bernardo and his program. So you see clippings and pictures from newspapers, and they're glued into the pages. If we zoom in on a couple of these. So this is just 2 articles that have been kind of put side by side. They are 2 actual different articles. But the part about this particular scrapbook that I like is that it's got the name of the paper up at the top, right? So it says Daily News, September 21st, 1905. So you've got actually a citation and the ability to go back and find this article in kind of the newspaper collection. The second thing I like about pieces like this is it gives us a really easy way to have contemporary language. So what are the words they are using? Are they at this point referring to them as home children? Are they referring to them as Bernardo boys? Are they referring to them as orphans? What are the keyword terms you need to be able to search newspaper content for more articles like this? And this is why I feel like scrapbooks and this kind of collection is actually really important, because this is all they are known articles about this topic. And it gives us the language from the contemporary period to be able to go and then reduplicate that search in the digitized newspaper collection on Findmypast. So there's a couple of different ways to look at this. You can just go through page by page and kind of browse and see what was happening during this time period when this scrapbook was created. But it also kind of gives us some reference in terms of how to conduct further research. So that's the first set. The second set is that Register of Boys Register of Boys arrived in Toronto for the House of Industry. So we know that the Toronto House of Industry was established in 1837. It was originally an unused courthouse that was converted. And Lori, I think you have a little bit of more information about the Toronto House of Industry for us.
I actually don't have very much more
Yeah.
information on the House of Industry. I have done some looking into it. It is mentioned in The Golden Bridge by Marjorie Coley, so you can reference back to that book. That book is available online on archive.org, so you can borrow it for an hour and take a look and see what she says about the House of Industry.
Cool. So the register is not very long. I think it's less than 25 pages, if I remember right. And all of them pretty much look like this. Let's zoom in a little bit. So you do have to kind of work to read some of the handwriting, but it is just kind of a basic register, the name of the child, kind of their condition, their parents, where they came from, the date at which they made that trip, and then the party engaged with, right? So the sending organization, so Bernardo's, for example, although they didn't exist just yet. So a very standard kind of register all the way across. But one of the interesting bits about this particular register that I have not seen before was in the last couple of pages, you actually have a list of names of people in Canada who are writing to this house, to this facility, and saying, I would like a boy sent to me from 12 to 16 years of age. And there's not as many. It's just, I think, 2.5 pages worth of names. But we did transcribe all of this. So you can search on the name of the child or the name of the adult on the back pages of this list. And then, of course, once you go into the collection, you can actually just click through all the images and see them all for yourself and get to these last couple of pages. But I found this actually quite fascinating when we were first examining this manuscript. I don't know, Lori, if you've ever seen anything quite like this before, but for me, it was definitely a first.
No, not quite like this. Not. I mean, we do have a lot of documents that tell us the placement and give us the name and address of where the children are placed. But this is definitely unique, and I think it's an amazing collection.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop for just a second and acknowledge Helen's comment. She said her great aunt is also somewhere in that picture that you were talking about that's on the cover of your book.
Oh, awesome. So I bet he's the second prettiest, right? No.
Right. Okay, and then our third collection this week is, again, from TNA, or the National Archives. This is part of MH19. If you're familiar with their cataloging system, it's MH19/11. This is the Immigration to Canada Enclosures to Reports. And you'll see up at the top of the image, it says Department of Agriculture. This series contains local government board copies of enclosures and reports regarding the immigration of kind of these pauper and orphan children from 1887 to 1892. So within the series, there are these detailed reports compiled by the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, and instructions from the Dominion of Canada Immigration Officer, kind of that head nod to what Lori was saying earlier about the Government of Canada was very much involved in this. And so that series includes documentation from Canada. And they talk about the children's condition, their health, their character, schooling, frequency of church attendance, that kind of thing. And then they also include the union or the parish from which they came from in the UK. So what is available today is very register looking, right? If we zoom in a little bit, it looks pretty standard. It's the name of the child, their age, again, the sending organization, and then their comments on the inspection of the children themselves. And again, a relatively small record set, as most of these are with home children. But again, really, really essential. And this is the first time that these records have been digitized. TNA was actually really happy that we were interested in this as well. So they were very pleased for us to go in and digitize some of these materials. And then, of course, fully searchable as well on Findmypast. And I should note,
This is
too.
why this partnership is so important. It's so
Yeah.
important because I have never seen this register. I had no idea it even existed. And with Findmypast, they're able to get into these archives and able to connect with these people, and they have the ability to do this so that it's going to be available for our family members. So again, it's a big shout out to Findmypast. I mean, this is incredible.
So I had the privilege of actually going into TNA when some of these materials were actually being scanned, which is normally a part of the process I don't get to see, right? Being in the United States, I don't really time my trips up very well sometimes. But I had the chance to actually go in and see these records for myself and touch them and be in the room. And that is just such a powerful moment. But what I really love about this initiative um, and something that I am really, I guess, just really pleased about, I guess you would say I'm chuffed in the UK. But Findmypast has actually agreed to make all of these records available for free. So you don't need a subscription to access any of the records related to the home children at all. You just need an account, a free account on Findmypast so that you can kind of log into the website. But other than that, you don't need to pay for any of these. We're just making these available, and I'm personally quite proud of that. I have worked for the company for a long time, and we've done some really great things. But this is the one thing that I'm like, this is like a feather in my career for sure, right? A feather in your cap kind of thing. Right. Great lingo. Thanks, Liam. Yeah. Trying to get my UK on. Okay. We're going to transition a little bit and tell a story. I'm trying to figure out what time it is. Yep. We're right about on time, Lori. We're doing really well.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So we are going to tell the story of Ethel Miller. And this is, like I said earlier, this is the first time that this material has really been available. It's the first time we've been able to really tell Ethel's story. There's some real basic information available, or there was prior to yesterday, on the British Home Children site on the register. But between the two organizations, we have now been able to expand. So I'm going to tell kind of the first part of the story in her life in England and how she ends up in Canada. And then Lori is going to take over and tell the rest of the story and how she and what happens with Ethel. And I love that we're doing this kind of collaborative case study, Lori. I think this is very cool. And
That's
I think
awesome.
this is also a first for Findmypast live sessions. So that's cool.
And home
All right.
children.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Ethel Miller. The first record I found of her actually that kind of raised my attention or grabbed my attention was this one. And this is just a list of one of the girls, a list of girls that were sent to Canada. It was sent by the director of the Stepney Barnardo's Homes to the Secretary of State. And it's dated the 30th of January, 1911. So she had been committed to the Barnardo's home at Brigg in Lancashire through the petty session courts. And all they are indicating in this list is that she is being sent to Canada under the Children's Act of 1908. So this is, certainly kind of later in the period, but of course leading up to World War I, just to kind of set the scene a little bit in terms of what she's experiencing at home. Her file actually contains this really helpful short summary. She's 11 years old at this point. And the reason this summary exists is because of a particular judge who decides to get involved in the case. But what we learn right away is that she is initially committed into Barnardo's on the 21st of April, 1910, again, under the Children Care Act of 1908. But both of her parents are alive. Her father is a laborer. He had already served 1 month in prison for cruelty to his children. And her mother is referred to as, quote, a common prostitute who had been convicted 10 times, twice for cruelty to her children. So that's what this report kind of gives us, is this background information. Well, from there, we can explore a huge number of records in terms of understanding kind of how we got to the point of April 1910 when she gets committed to Barnardo's. And if we go to newspapers, we actually find this particular family all over the papers as the parents are struggling to parent, right? So they are accused of neglect many times over. They are arrested many times over. We can document all of that. And in fact, one of their eldest daughters actually she has her own child, and she starts to be involved in these cases as well. And what you get from reading these newspaper reports is kind of this general trend of probably real poverty. It comes out really clearly. Probably some kind of problems with alcohol, and certainly just a struggle to maintain work. That shows up over and over and over again. And as this family kind of further and further declines in social status and probably dealing with things like depression and all sorts of mental health conditions as a result of all of these issues, their children continue to suffer. So she ends up in Bernardo's, and she goes to the girls' village home in Barkingside. She is then addressed in this letter. So this letter from the 23rd of January 1911 is actually sent to her parents. And she, at that point, they tell the parents she has been selected to go to Canada. And they are giving instructions as to how the parents can then communicate with her. So they give an address as to where they can send letters to be forwarded on to their daughter. This is not asking for permission, just to be really clear. This is the organization and the Bernardo system kind of telling the parents this is what's happening with your daughter, and you don't really have much of a choice. 2 days after after this letter is sent, the father replies, and he says, I have a job. My life is much more secure. I'm doing a lot better. Please, can our little daughter come home again? And basically kind of almost in a tone of like begging them to return her to the family. He says that he's now working, he's making a shilling a week, and basically, please don't send her to Canada. So this all happens in January of 1911. So of course, the 1911 census takes place. And at that point, we find her in the Bernardo's home. So she's listed there with the middle name of Margaret, which I'm not sure is correct, but she's 12 years old at this point. And then finally, lastly, later that month in June, we actually see her departing for Canada. So she leaves on the 29th of June aboard the Sicilian, which sails to Quebec. And this is, of course, months after her father writes that kind of very heart-wrenching letter. She's actually listed a couple times in passengers lists. I wanted to bring out both because you often see notations on the passengers list, like in that blue circle on the screen, it says Bernardo's home children. You can see them all grouped together. So she is one of many traveling in this large party over to Ontario. She ends up at the Peterborough home, Dr. Bernardo's Hazel Bray Receiving Home. Thanks for this image from Home Children Canada's website. And so this is where she ends up in Canada. But the story from England is not quite done. So what happens is there is a judge as part of the court system who has been handling the case of the parents, right? Remember, they've been in and out of court this whole time. And he finds out that one of the children has been sent to Canada, and he questions the authority of who gets to make that decision. And so he opens an investigation. And so he's really saying, like, who has permission to send her to Canada? Is it me as the judge handling the case, or is it the Secretary of State? And so because he kind of asks these questions, we have additional details about Ethel and her family. So he opens a case, and there are solicitors that go out and actually interview the parents. And so they do that, and they get this quote from the mother in March of 1911 while she is sitting in England at that Bernardo's home. And in March, the mom tells these investigators that she had been sent to Canada in February. So the parents think she is already out of the country. And again, kind of reiterating, this is against their wishes, right? And without the knowledge of the court system, the justices who committed her to the home in the first place. They then realize that she had
Hello. I'm not sure if Jen is still on or not, but
sorry about
there you go. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness. That was like a minor heart attack. I have no idea what just happened. I'm gonna pick this back up. We're gonna keep going. Whew. Okay. Sorry, guys. The court finds out that there's a brother, and his name is Edward, and he has also been put into the custody of a Bernardo's home. He then becomes the concern of the judge, because the judge thinks Ethel is already in Canada and there's nothing I can do here, but I can try and help this young boy. So Edward actually is on the list of children to go to Canada, and then he is pulled off by this judge. He ultimately joins British military during World War I, and he ends up dying during that conflict. So as far as we can tell, Ethel's the only one of the many children of this family who end up going to Canada. And we don't know for sure, of course, but you can kind of speculate that it was probably very difficult for her to hear from her family at that point. So the investigation kind of walks through all of this for us in their reports back to the judge. And we've got this kind of quoted out, right? And it talks about how the opinions of the police that the parents have improved as a consequence of the children being sent away. They think they are actually ready, that they will abstain from their bad behavior. The father appears to have felt the separation of his children very keenly. That's a quote. And really is hopeful that the children can be reunited with the parents at some point. Neither Ethel or Edward are ever sent back to live with their parents. So just to review, because that's kind of a lot in a very short segment, right? So 21st of April, she is committed to the girls' village home. In 1911, several things happen, right? We've got these letters kind of going back and forth between the all of the officials and the parents. They kind of ask for them to be returned. They are at least under the impression that she's already in Canada by the 1st of March. And then, of course, she doesn't actually go to Canada until the 29th of June. So she sails on the Sicilian for Canada. And then, Lori, what happens?
Well, when she arrives in Canada, she's taken to the Hazelbrae home in Peterborough. So the Hazelbrae home in Peterborough was really the female home for the girls up until about 1923, when the girls then started to go to Toronto. So there was just under 9,000 girls that were brought to Hazelbrae, and Ethel was one of them. We don't have anything else on Ethel until we find her in the 1921 census. So in 1921, she's living in Macaulay, Muskoka, Ontario, and she's living with Arthur Moore, and Ethel is also living with a small child, Edward E. Miller. And Edward E. Miller is her son. He's illegitimate, and he's 1 year old. So again, we have 10 years that we don't have too much on Ethel. And then we go to the 1931 census, and she's still working as a domestic for Arthur Moore in Macaulay, Ontario. And she has with her an 11-year-old son. Now, this is a little bit of a thing that we come into with names and with information about the home children, because that home children is either called Eric, which I can see on the transcription there, or I think it could also be Lee, but it looks like Eric on the records. Now, of course, that's a different name altogether from Edward E. Miller. I don't know what the little guy's middle name was, because we can't find his birth record yet, which is also, could be a common thing with illegitimate children that are born. So we have to apply the theory here of common sense. I mean, she's in the same place. It's the same name. It's the same information. So this is her son that she had back in, 1919. I think he was born or something like that, like a little wee guy. And so hats off to her, and hats off to the Moore family for keeping her on board and for helping her look after that little kid, because that didn't really happen a whole lot with the home children. Quite often when Bernardos and stuff got involved, the children were taken and put up for adoption and stuff like that. So it's a big shout out to her treatment in this family. So I can only imagine and conclude that she ended up with a family that actually cared for her and helped look after her and this little boy. So hats off to them too. On April the 5th of 1937, in Bracebridge, Ontario, we find that Ethel marries, and she married Albert Ernest Leader. Both of her parents are listed as unknown, which is, of course, a common thing when it comes to the home children. So it's either unknown or sometimes they invent the names. So when you get this information from home children, I mean, I think what we have to do is you have to take it with a grain of salt, because you have to understand that these children didn't come here with birth certificates. So quite often the birth dates and everything are not correct on these legal forms. Quite often they didn't know who their parents were, so sometimes they listed as unknown in this case, and sometimes they invent names. So they're not really the correct names, and as well, the names are quite often misspelled or they're different. So you really have to, you really have to use a bit of common sense and just understand, because we run into this all the time. Just understand that this information may not be 100% accurate all the time. But okay, of course, in this case, she's listed her parents as unknown, and Ethel gives her age as 35 years of age. Now, again, I don't know if she had any further children or not. There is some thought that she had at least another one. And we also haven't found out what happened to Edward, her son.
Yeah.
Now, Ethel died in 1971 at the age of 71, and she's buried in the St. Thomas Cemetery in Bracebridge, Ontario.
And then I think one more slide for you.
Yeah, that is a picture of the Hazel Bray Memorial up in Peterborough, Ontario. If you haven't been to this, if you've had a girl come through the Bernardo's home, and even if you didn't, it's an awesome monument, and it's on Bernardo Avenue again in Peterborough, and again it has just over 9,000 names of girls that came. The panels are listed in immigration year. So we can see Ethel's panel here, and she is the one circled in red at the very bottom of the picture there. Yeah. So it's a great resource.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that brings us to the end of Ethel's story, as far as we know it, at least today. But as Lori said, we don't really know yet what happened to Edward. We don't know very much about her adult life and her married life. So there's still more to learn here.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah, I think though what we really can demonstrate is that there are opportunities for learning about these children, both from after they were immigrated and before as well. And like you said, Lori, this is one of the main reasons why Findmypast has gotten involved in these projects, is so that we can kind of pull out and extract some of these records that that have kind of been hidden away, right? One of the comments we got was from Gerard saying, "Who would think to look at Department of Agriculture funds to find information on children who were sent to Canada?" And that's true. And we have to really acknowledge our allies. Allies, is that the right word? Our collaborators at the National Archives as well, and some of their experts. When you approach an archive for projects like this, and we've been doing this on a pretty routine basis, we are really saying, we're working on this project. We would like to help expose these records and tell these stories. And they look at us and go, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. No one has ever asked to look at this file before. No one knows it's here. It's so hidden away. It's been tucked into a box. It's been, been sitting on our shelves for 100 years. No one's once looked at it." So this is the opportunity that we have in front of us, right? In terms of a collaborative partnership, right? And I think it is important that partners in this initiative are both not-for-profit and corporate, right? Findmypast obviously is a corporation, but most of our partners in this initiative are non-for-profits or are civic organizations. And that mix is really important to making this work. So it's kind of the power of all these brains coming into the same room and saying, right, what can we do here? So I suppose what I'm trying to get to is more to come, right? The idea of Ethel's story is not unique. We will be able to tell more and more stories like this as the project continues. So it's very exciting.
It is exciting, and I have made contact with the extended family of Ethel's in Canada. So they haven't responded back to me yet. So fingers crossed that they're going to get back, and that we're going to learn even more about Ethel. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And Liam actually is a step ahead of us. He's already shared a link to the Home Children Canada website. We do want to make sure that we call that out. This organization has just done a tremendous amount of work over the years, and their website is well worth spending time on. It is just a huge amount of information. So carve out some time in your diary and actually sit down and read through the information that they've published, because it is phenomenal. The URL is kind of right in the middle of the screen, but homechildrencanada.com, relatively easy to remember. And make sure then too that you take some time to look at the registry. I find the registry to be quite powerful. Lori, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the registry, and I'll put Ethel's entry up?
Yeah, so the registry was started way back in the early 1990s by a fellow called Perry Snow. And Perry Snow comprised a list starting with his father, who was Frederick Snow. Frederick came through the Church of England Wastes and Strays. So it started with one name. And over the years, he collected about 60,000 names. And he turned it over to Home Children Canada in 2014. And we have been working on it ever since. But the neat thing about the registry right now is just in the last year, we have gotten the ability now to start updating the sheets and start adding the information. And we have an incredible group of researchers, our top researchers in our Home Children Canada research group, that are adding information and adding children on a daily basis. So this is constantly being updated. I personally try to get at least 3 files updated every day, but sometimes that gets a little complicated, because you start with one,
Yeah.
I started with one for a lady and I ended up with 6.
Right. Yeah.
So
Well, we'll say, all the research that we've shared on Ethel will be shared, of course, and so Lori, you can count Ethel as one of your updates today, because we'll be able to fill
awesome.
in quite a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
more
looking
about
forward to
her.
updating her sheet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a comprehensive overview of the life of each child. Each sheet it allows for a lot of various information, which is different to any other collection
Yeah.
of information for the home children, as in this type of a situation. I mean, Library and Archives Canada is fairly comprehensive, and they give the shipping information, and they will give the ups and downs and the Middlemore information and Maria Rye and that kind of stuff. Those databases have been incorporated, but this one shows everything: who they married, where they died. It links to their memorials. Gives their service information, and what homes they were in, and of course, and all that's dependent on the information that we have available. So you can actually come to our website, and you hit the British Home Child Registry, and there's a second little link there that'll bring you to the submission forms. So you can fill out the information for your home children. It will be in our index and I will get these updated as I can. I'm a little bit behind. I got about 40 right now that I have a vacation coming up, and I'll be working on
A vacation while you're
updating the
working. Yep.
information sheets that I've got backlogged. So if anyone has sent in the information, be assured that it's safely kept. It's in our archives, and it's going to be updated. I'm going to get that done on my holiday.
On holiday. Yeah. I think you're the uniqueness, and one of the reasons I love this database so much actually is because it's so it has so much depth, right? So every person that you look up, you have this opportunity to record all of this information. It's like looking at genealogy software or like an online family tree, and you're looking at their profile page and you see everything in one place instead of all of these dispersed records. So if you haven't yet, guys, if you haven't gone onto their site and played around a little bit or explored some of the history, or even just read through some of these entries, which I highly encourage you to do, please do so, because it really is eye-opening to understand how much research is going into this, and all from volunteers, which is just an incredible thing. I cannot say that enough. Like, the volunteers for this effort are just tremendous, and they are just incredible human beings. So please knock up their traffic numbers, if nothing else, and just show your support by reading their work, because it's just incredible what they do.
Absolutely. And if people want to join our group on Facebook, you're welcome to. It's called British Home Children Home Children Canada Research Association, and you can watch the magic there, because a lot of the stories are being posted every last single day with the updates on the registry. It's just incredible stuff. It's just absolutely incredible, and again, I'm in awe of the ladies that are working on the registry and working and doing research for people. They're giving a lot of their time for free.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't charge a penny, not a penny, for the research that goes on in the group.
And
So
huge hours, just incredible hours spent. I follow the Facebook group. I don't have the opportunity to contribute very often, but just watching the updates every day is just mind blowing. one more resource to point out. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of the landing page on the Findmypast website as well. Although it's not nearly as extensive as Lori's site, but we do have some basic information. And then if you scroll down on this page, there's a search box that allows you to search all of our related records for this project in one box. So you don't have to go into our general search or anything. You go directly to the British Home Children landing page and search all of the related records at one time. So, and then that's all you search, right? So that's all your results are going to come up with. So previously, before this week, we have published all of these materials on Findmypast as well. And then of course, this week we added 3 more sets. So this list continues to grow, but keep in mind, you can access this information on Findmypast. You can access it through our partners at the National Archives or Library and Archives Canada or Home Children Canada. And we want to just acknowledge and thank them again for their contributions. So all of this, again, available through all of these different sites, but hopefully we're making kind of making our voice louder and sharing this information in a bigger way. So I think that is all the slides, which is great. So I can stop clicking that. We did have a couple of questions come through and a couple of comments. So we'll spend our last few minutes just talking about those. Rosie saying both her great-grandmother's sisters are on the registry. It's amazing to see the info in one place. So thank you, Rosie, for that.
Thank you.
And then William had a question. He wants to know about having names changed. Were they changed routinely or any kind of habitual way as if someone was adopted? Lori?
They were quite often changed, so it makes researching them a little bit more challenging. But the registry is being built to search by alternative names. So there's alternative spellings, there's alternative names, and you can search it by the placement family names too. So quite often you'll be able to pick up on what their name actually was by searching that. Now, again, this information is all just really starting to be really put in there. I mean, we had a lot that were in there from the past as well too. So it may not all be there, but that is the intention of the registry, is to make sure that all that's available. So it's very comprehensive research available.
Yeah, excellent. And then I would just go back to lots of comments like this one from Flo. Thank you very much, Flo. We do appreciate the support from the community. You guys have just been incredible through this project. And I know, this obviously isn't the first session that Lori and I have done, but we get a lot of comments on these videos, and that's always really good to see. So, and I wanted to comment, we do have people from the UK and even a couple people from Australia watching today.
Nice.
So, yeah, and South Wales and all over the place. So, they're really, really good today. Let's see. And I'm kind of looking at Liam. I don't think there's any more comments or questions that we didn't answer. Nope, he says no. Great. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and call it a day. Lori, thank you so much again for joining us. We just love having you on. You're like talking to a library, really.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me again. I appreciate, everything. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. You can tell we love each other a lot, right? There's a lot of love. And tomorrow, of course, is the official day. So if you have the chance or the moment, or you have the thought, please take a second just to think about these children and read a little bit of the history and understand what is being acknowledged and recognized tomorrow. There are some locations across the UK, and we put that screen up earlier. If you, especially Liverpool, I think is like the main location for it. If you happen to be in that area and you get some pictures tomorrow, we would love to see those. We would love to have you share those on social media with us, both Findmypast and Home Children Canada. Please do get out and acknowledge the locations that are lighting up their buildings and having these prayer moments and all of those services. And show your appreciation and really kind of, walk the walk, if you will, right? If you get the chance, put yourself in that environment and try and get out there and honor these children alongside us. And we would love to see that you're there. So please do share.
One of the things, if I can say, that we do.
Yeah, please do.
Is if you can't get out to these events and stuff like that, we have a listing of over 11,000 burials, which is available on Findmypast. So every year what we do is you can go in, you can search by the area, and find a home child that is maybe buried in your local town, and get out and commemorate their graves. The sunflower is the flower of the home child. We quite often put sunflowers at their graves. Take a picture and send us those pictures. Post them in our Facebook group. It's an awesome way to be able to participate and acknowledge a home child.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for saying that, because I didn't think about that, but I should have. So if you participate in any way tomorrow, please tag us on social media. You can send them to us directly. And let me get that. Let's use support@findmypast.com if you want to send them over to us directly, and we'll be sure to share them as well. And importantly, I think, especially for the volunteers that are involved, and for the entire team at Find My Past, we will share these inside our organizations, any pictures and things that you send. So this is just another way to kind of acknowledge the project and the work, and all of the commitment and the hours, and literally a lifetime's worth of work from some people like Lori. So please do get out and show your support for this community. All right. Any last comments, Lori, that you want to leave us with?
No, I just think that I just want to wish everybody a happy British Home Child Day tomorrow. And, let's just get out and celebrate these kids. They so deserve it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all very much. We will be back, of course, next week. I think it's Ellie and Liam back next week. And until then, enjoy your research and make some discoveries, and don't forget to share them with the community, whatever way you are most comfortable with. Thank you, Lori, again, and all of your volunteers. Roberta is saying it as well. And we'll just leave it there for the week, I think. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and please take a minute to acknowledge the home children. Thanks very much.
Thank you.